What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Light and Lamp podcast, episode 1 of season 2.
We made it.
I am here with Steve, and I'm super excited to bring you guys this episode. This is going to be our live top 10, maybe top 15 if the picks are kind of quick. Draft, instant analysis, reactions. We're watching the draft right now. You're probably going to hear it in the background. Right now, it's about 15 minutes until the official first pick needs to be in, and then we're just going to be spitballing from there. So I guess, let's just jump right into it and talk about...
Mackenzie has... still a jump by field in the rankings for Mackenzie. Interesting. Sorry, that came up.
No, you're good. We're just going to talk about the draft and other stuff. Do you want to start with maybe some other stuff that's gone on in the NHL? Like, do you want to talk about the Max Domi trade at all?
Yeah, we can talk about stuff. I mean, there's been some stuff that's happened.
So, it was Max Domi and a third for Josh Anderson from the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, well, the rights to Josh Anderson.
They're
because
both
he's RFAs.
They're both qualified, so if they do get a offer sheet, the teams will be compensated. So they're not under contract, but they're qualified.
Yeah, I think they're both arbitration eligible as well.
I believe so.
Because I think they've both met the league minimum for amount of games.
So let's just talk about it. What do you think of this trade from Montreal's perspective, from Columbus's perspective? I know we talked about it at length in the group chat earlier, but just kind of give me your overall thoughts on this move.
Well, I mean, I don't have an issue with either of the players moving. Either of the players that got moved, I don't think is a bad pickup for either team. I just don't understand, so Montreal was the team that ended up winning this trade, winning out on the sweepstakes for Josh Anderson, because apparently there were a lot of teams in on this, and apparently the Rangers were interested. There were a lot of teams interested in Josh Anderson. He's a big guy. He can score you probably 20 goals, 25 goals every year. I mean, he had a pretty rough year this year, but Columbus was not
He was
particularly
also hurt, I think.
And
I think over his seasons, and I think I read the stat was he's missed over 100 games with injuries.
And I think it's just the way he plays. Yeah, he plays a big, heavy game. So, but I mean, I think it's a good change of scenery for both players, because maybe a change of scenery is always good. You might be a little more. There's a little less pressure involved, maybe, but I don't understand why Montreal. So Montreal was in on this deal, and it was originally just 1-for-1. It was supposed to be Max Domi for Josh Anderson when they were talking to Columbus, but because so many other teams are interested, Columbus was kind of, trying to play the field, and Columbus ended up pretty much extorting Montreal for that third-round pick. They essentially used whatever leverage they had, which was, Josh Anderson for the third-round pick. And I don't see him being such a game-breaking player for Montreal that I would feel the need to go out there and win a sweepstakes by continuing to up the ante when all the other GMs are pretty much standing pat. Or with what they're anteing up being very small, I could see them anteing up maybe third round, fifth round picks, sixth round picks, because you're not really trading for a player, you're trading for his rights. Because in reality, you still have to negotiate with this guy and his agent now, and you might end up going to arbitration anyway.
Right.
So you might have to sit in front of an arbitrator, and then what happens if you don't want to agree to that contract? He's a UFA now, so you walked away for nothing, and you traded a third round pick and Max Domi. Same can be said for the Blue Jackets, but in the end, the Blue Jackets just traded a qualified RFA for a qualified RFA. So at the end of the day, if they end up losing out on Domi because they can't agree to a contract,
well, they still got a third round.
They got a third round pick. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I just don't understand. I don't get it.
This doesn't move the needle for really either team, I don't think, but I want to focus on Montreal more because, we know that Columbus is a decent team. I think really the only big key hole that they're missing is kind of that true blood goal scorer. Some guys that are on the market apparently, like Patrick Laine's name has been thrown around. Steven Stamkos' name has been thrown around. That's really the biggest hole, is a true blood goal scorer. Whereas in Montreal's case, they're missing a lot, and some of the moves that they've been making recently have kind of been head scratchers. So they still have Jake Allen. I'm assuming he will be moved before season starts. I can't see them going into the season with $15 million tied up in goaltenders. The defense, I think, right now is actually pretty solid. They signed Joel Edmondson. So, overall, that defensive core is not bad. You still have Weber, Mete, Edmondson.
Jeff Petrie still there.
Jeff Petrie, that's a solid top 4.
But they still have Kulak, right? And They have Brett Kulak and what's the other guy they signed? The guy they got from Winnipeg, Ben Sherratt.
Yeah, so they still have a pretty solid defensive core, but really what they're missing is almost any offense at all. I mean, Nick Suzuki, obviously, we saw flashes of brilliance from him. Brendan Gallagher's, again, he's more of an engine. He's not really like the guy that's going to drive the offense. He's an engine in the sense of like he's an energy guy, right? But this doesn't move the needle for them. And do you think that the playoff run went into Bergevin's head at all? Because it seems like he's operating this team as if they're still competing.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I still don't understand the Jake Allen trade, like you said. Like, I know they might not be sold on Keith Kincaid as the backup, which is fine. That's understandable. Keith Kincaid has struggled, since he left the Devils. I mean, he even struggled with the Devils, but we all thought it was just the team. When in reality, it might just be that he's, kind of just an okay backup at most, But Jake Allen's making so much money, it just doesn't make sense to carry that contract. And if it was just Keith Kincaid that they were worried about, and they had, they just had running Jake Allen to compete with Keith Kincaid, but you still have Carey Price. Carey Price is still making $9 million a year or whatever that contract's worth.
I think he's 10, and Allen is 5.
To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't seem like Bergevin's really made any effort to clear that up, because he's been really non-committal about what's going on with the team in statements. So the Joel Edmondson trade made sense. I like that trade a lot. Carolina couldn't hold on to him, and Montreal used it to fill a need that they had. So that's fine. But like you said, they've been one of the most anemic offensive teams for the last, I don't know, honestly, even since they're competing, they were like the Rangers in a lot of ways. Their offense didn't win them a lot of games.
No.
And that's not to say, they had Max Pacioretty, who was like a 6-time 30-goal scorer with them, and the captain. But overall, like, their game was pretty defensively based. But in the league now, teams are moving more towards an offensive game. Granted, the Tampa Bay Lightning won, but the Lightning can play defense. But the big thing that broke the Lightning over the Dallas Stars was the fact that they could score way better than the Stars could, because the Stars star players couldn't seem to find any sort of momentum. And I don't think Montreal adding, Josh Anderson's, like I said, a 20-goal scorer at best, maybe a 30-goal scorer if he gets hot. But it doesn't move the needle, because you still don't have a number one center. You're still waiting on to see if Kakaniemi or Suzuki or any of these guys are getting ready. And in reality, you really should be getting younger, because you have guys in the pipe that are coming up. Mete is only younger. He's young. He's 21 or 22,
something like that. Yeah.
Cole Caulfield's 19. He's playing NCAA. Still don't know how he slid to 15 last year. Absolutely disgusting. So I don't know. I really think they should be moving in a younger direction. And Josh Anderson's not old; he's like 23. But I still think at that point you're not expending picks and players who are also of a similar age. Well, Max Domi's only 25.
That's the thing, right? So if this was 1-for-1, I could see it. It's like you got a little younger. You get a guy you're getting a guy who's really a 30-goal scorer but hasn't shown it yet because he's been hurt all the time. But Montreal's throwing picks, and they threw picks in with the Allen deal. They threw picks in with the Edmondson deal. They threw picks in with this deal, as if they're getting ready to go on a cup run.
Oh, and they just bought out Carl Alsner's contract, so now they're gonna have that dead cap carrying with them for how many years?
And it's like they're throwing picks at the wind, like they're the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are still, in theory, in a competitive window.
Right.
Whereas let's be honest here, they were 24th in the league. They were not anywhere even close to a playoff spot when the season ended. If the format hadn't been the way it was, they would not be in the playoffs. They would not have beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think it's a risk, because what happens next year, you come back, you lay an egg like you did all of last year, and now you threw away, I think up to this point, 3 or 4 different picks on these trades. And now what? Now
left with nothing.
What do you do? So I don't see the vision for this roster. You can win Stanley Cups basically only playing defense if you're like the LA Kings in 2012 and 2014. If you have like Drew Doughty, Rob Scuderi, Alec Martinez.
But even then their top 6 could score goals. I mean, you had Anze Kopitar, Jeff Carter, Mike Richards before the cocaine.
Dustin Brown,
Tyler Toffoli was there. That was when he was still good. Tanner Pearson had that. Pearson, Toffoli, and Carter had that great year together.
Yeah. So you can win a Stanley Cup being a defensively focused team, right? really was that LA Kings team. They could score goals, but were they lighting the league on fire?
Oh, no.
No. But you still need somebody that can put the puck in the net. Whereas in Montreal, your best player right now is probably, in terms of point production, probably going to be either Nick Suzuki or Brendan Gallagher. And I think Suzuki's getting better, but you can see that he's still fighting an uphill battle. You know, that small size of his is really something he's going to have to get used to. It's going to be very difficult for Montreal to make a Stanley Cup run when your best player is probably only going to put up 50, 60 points, combined with the fact that you're playing in a division with the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the what's left of the Boston Bruins after this offseason. And then even if you get out of the Atlantic Division, now you're facing up against the Islanders, the Rangers, the Capitals, the Penguins, and I just don't see the vision for this roster coming together to a point where they can compete with any of those teams.
I really just, instead of hemorrhaging picks, be just like stockpiling picks for the next 2 or 3 years and bide their time, because eventually the bubble's going to burst on Tampa Bay.
It might burst this offseason.
Right, so the bubble is going to burst on them. The bubble seems to be bursting on the Bruins in the next couple of years. They're going to have a cap reckoning. So, like, there was never a bubble in the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were never, like, the bubble has been burst since John Tavares signed his contract, right? They have one defenseman under contract this year. So it's like, you could have just bided your time and got younger players and really started to develop young talent when, you know, and then you could have been ready to compete with all these other teams hit their, you know, the bubble bursts. But instead, you're trying to get into the same competitive window as these teams, when in reality, they're still going to be competing for another 2, 3, 4 years maybe, when you could have waited that out, because nobody has any expectations of the Montreal Canadiens right now.
Do you think that they should have capitalized on their playoff run in terms of the perceived value of some of their players?
Oh, absolutely. They could have moved out guys like Philip Deneau and stuff for value, because their value is never going to be higher than it was this year.
Playoffs.
Right.
And not to be mean to like Carey Price or something, but that was the best Carey Price has probably looked in about 2 or 3 years. You know, his regular seasons have just only been okay. I mean, let's look at the team he's playing behind. But that being said, he looked white hot in the playoffs. And of course, you never want to trade away a guy like Carey Price, but I mean, if you're going to rebuild, you might as well trade him while he's at his peak value, because you don't want to end up, no offense, you don't want to end up with a Henrik Lundqvist situation where his contract is not worth his value and nobody wants him. Or actually, a better one is a Marc-Andre Fleury situation, who apparently has been offered to the entire National Hockey League with a pick, and nobody wants him.
The retention of half of his contract, and still nobody wants him. I think what his agent did has lent itself a lot to that. I think you know, that made him untouchable, and not that, like, because obviously Fleury didn't feel that way at all. Marc-Andre Fleury is like the consummate professional. He always has been. I mean, he sat on that bench backing up Matt Murray for 2 Stanley Cups with a smile on his face. He was just as happy to win the Stanley Cup backing him up as he was starting. I mean, would you have asked him if he would have rather been playing? 100%. He would have rather been in the net. But, you know, like I said, consummate professional. So for Alan Walsh to do that and pretty much taint his, you know, client's prospects of being able to play anywhere in the National Hockey League this coming season is kind of been detrimental to everybody.
And I mean, maybe the timing is just off, because it's going to be a very good market for free agent goalies. So a lot of teams are probably going to try to dip into the market and just pay cap space as opposed to paying assets plus cap space for Fleury. So after all the big names are off the board, maybe he can find a home. But to, you know, going back to the Montreal thing, Carey Price's value hasn't been this high in a long time. Philip Deneau's value may never be this high again. Shea Weber's value may never be this high again. Instead, you're going to run with this core into next year. What happens if, again, you're like 24th in the league, but now, we have all these guys who are like 26, 28, ready to compete. Where are you going? I mean, it's like the San Jose Sharks were trading for Devin Dubnyk. I
forgot that happened. I totally forgot that happened. I mean, Devin Dubnyk hasn't been the same in, 4 years now?
Regression curve was like the 1929 stock market. He peaked, and then it was real bad.
I mean, he lost his starting job. I mean, he got injured this year, but before that, he had lost his starting job to, who was it? Like
Alex Stalock?
Yeah, Alex Stalock, who couldn't hold down a starting job against Martin Jones in San Jose, and Martin Jones is terrible.
Yeah.
And so what, now you're going to have Martin Jones back up Devin Dubnyk, both of which are over the hill, and their aggression is very clear from both of them?
And part of this is also because the Wild have Capo Kakinen, who's coming up in the system. He looks like he's ready to play in the NHL next year. So this made the move necessary. But you can understand why the Minnesota Wild traded him away. Why are the San Jose Sharks bringing him in?
Do the San Jose Sharks really think that the only issue they had last year was goaltending and not the fact that their division is younger and faster and getting better, and they're sitting there with the same core of players who are north of 31? I mean, let's be honest. Erik Karlsson's not getting any younger. He's 29. Brett Burns is 34. Logan Couture was considered the young guy on that roster. He's 31 years old. He's not young.
And they sold off the rest of their defense. Mm-hmm. DeMello was gone and Dillon is gone. They sold at the deadline for a reason. So why are you bringing in
31, 32, 33-year-old Devin Dubnyk,
who's basically playing like he'd be a fringe player in the AHL right now? It's definitely questionable, but I mean, let's keep talking about trades, and then we'll bring it to the draft. The story came out today: the New York Rangers are not trading the number 1 pick; they're going to use that pick. I mean, obviously, the implication there is that they're going to take Alexis Lafreniere.
I guess, I mean, what that really said to me was that, like, teams obviously came and asked. Every team does its due diligence. They're going to ask to see, because the Rangers were really non-committal about it. I mean, the whole time they were just saying, we don't know what we're going to do with the pick. We don't know if we're going to trade it. We're going to keep it. And Jeff Gordon played it really close to the chest, which, I mean, you're supposed to. How else are you going to, get teams interested if you just come out and say, hey, we're going to keep it? Then you're not going to get any phone calls from any of the other teams, because they're all going to think, oh, well, they don't want to trade it. That being said,
you might as well see what they'll offer you.
Right, yeah, exactly. And what that meant to me is that nothing that anybody around the league offered them knocked their socks off in order for them to not take Alexis Lafreniere. That means none of the deals really were what the Rangers were probably looking for in value, or it was their value-wise and not so much cap or roster fit-wise.
That being said, they have said that their 24th, I think, pick
to 22nd
is in play.
Yeah.
They're willing to trade that pick. Let me ask you something. Assuming that what everyone thinks is going to happen happens, and the Rangers take Alexis Lafreniere at number 1, he's projected to step right into the NHL. He's projected to put up 50 to 60 points in his first year. Obviously, almost every single first-round pick is projected to do that. Not all of them do. Or every first overall pick is projected to do that, and not all of them do. But assuming that's the case, assuming the Rangers immediately insert him into the top 6, the top 6 wingers for the Rangers last year for a large part of the season was Kreider, Panarin, Buchnevich, and I had it this morning. Kreider, Panarin, Buchnevich.
And Jesper Fast was in there too. But Fast is leaving in free agency, so.
There's somebody. Who am I missing?
I'm trying to think.
Because Zibanejad and Strome were the centers.
Mm-hmm.
I
think it was Jesper Fast usually on the right side of Panarin.
I was literally thinking about it this morning, and I was like, they already have 4 wingers, and I'm not really seeing a hole here, but I think I'm forgetting somebody, and Rangers fans are probably screaming at me right now.
I mean, in reality, I could see the Rangers moving Buchnevich with that 22nd overall pick to fill a hole in the roster if they really wanted to.
Hold on, I'm just looking at this, because it's going to bother me if I don't remember.
I could honestly even see them moving out Ryan Strome because they haven't even qualified him yet.
Oh, duh. The idea then being Capo Kakko is going to be in the top 6, right? So if your wingers are Kakko, Kreider, Panarin, and Buch, you think that Buch would be the odd one out, and he'd get moved out of the organization entirely to make room for Alexis Lafreniere.
Well, the issue is Buchnevich's contract comes up next year, and he's going to be looking to make money because he wants his real contract. He's going to want his real contract, and he hasn't proven to the Rangers or really anybody that he's going to be worth the money he's going to be asking, $3.5 to $4 million. He's a fringe second-line player right now. I mean, he had a really good finish to the year where he had 17 points in 17 games. But that being said, that level of production isn't consistent from him. It kind of just it's too streaky to warrant, not warrant keeping and paying him that kind of money instead of seeing what you can get for him on the market with maybe the 22nd overall pick, because then the value is there for maybe to pick up a defenseman that you're looking for, and you don't have to worry about maybe the situation with Tony DeAngelo as much. But
would you, so as a Rangers fan, if you're trading that pick and you're trading Buchnevich, would you rather them trade for a second line center under contract or would you rather them trade for a defenseman and sign Ryan Strome? Like, I guess essentially the question is Ryan Strome on this roster next year if you had a choice?
He might have played his way off the roster is the issue, because he had his career high in 59 points last year, and he's going to be looking for like north of $4.5 million, maybe close to $5. And realistically, Ryan Strome is not worth $5 million in the NHL. I mean, he put up so many points because he was riding shotgun with Artemi Panarin for the entire season. I mean, I would put up 45 points with, I don't know what that was either. They were like filming on a potato.
This kid's about to be drafted into the NHL, and he's got like a 1996 webcam.
Yeah, the guy's calling to us from like a Super 8 camera. But, yeah, so I don't know. I think I'd rather see them do something about their defense, because they have some holes to fill, but they also have some young guys. But I'd rather them trade for like, an established veteran defenseman that could, like, maybe a guy like Brian Dumoulin would be the ideal fit, right? Solid in his own end, quietly goes about his business. Been in the league a while, is a winner. He's won 2 Stanley Cups, and he could fit on that bottom pair, and he would quietly kill all your penalty minutes. He could go out there and match up against tough players, because he does it every night with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he wouldn't, in theory, log jam your young guys behind him, because you could just keep him there, and they could just jump him on the depth chart and not have any problems.
Couple of young guys that are coming up for the Rangers. Philip Hedl has been playing on the roster from last season to this season. Does he fit into that second line center role?
I could see giving him a shot at it. Honestly, why not? I mean, he looked great. I mean, he's been good for the Rangers. The point production hasn't been there, but I think the offense is coming. I mean, he was adjusting to playing center at the NHL level after playing in the Czech Republic for his whole career. So the smaller ice surface, you could see he needed to get used to it. But
Vitaly Kravtsov is eventually he's going to be playing in your top 6 as well. Elias Anderson's also eventually going to be in that mix.
Well, I think Elias Anderson's gone. I think that ship has sailed. He's not even coming back over this year. He's staying in Sweden, so I think that's over with. The Rangers are going to try and trade him, but his value's never been any lower than it is now.
So we've talked at length about whether or not they should trade this pick and not take another scoring winger.
But at this point, it's very clear that the Rangers are
going
on the
to
clock.
do it. Yeah.
Also, Alexei Lafreniere's sister looks just like him, and it's really weirding me out. They have the same. They have the same jaw, bro. It's the same chin. Look at that. They both look like his dad. Actually, his mom has a square head too. They all look the same. This is so strange.
Another couple of teams with some multiple picks. Ottawa Senators have 3. The New Jersey Devils have 2. Do you think we're going to see any movement from any of them?
I don't think the Senators are going to move anything. I think the Senators are going to stick with those picks because they're sticking to the plan. They want to rebuild. They want to get younger. They want to draft well and develop. And I think that's the right move for the Ottawa Senators, especially going back to what we said this year. They know they're not going to be in any sort of position to compete next year or the year after. So, stay the course, ride it out, develop your players, and then by the time they're ready to compete, in theory, those Bruins and Lightning teams should not be competing as much as they were, and you should be able to just make your move into your competitive window without having to compete with like an aging dynasty. Like what Montreal is trying to do right now, and compete with like these aging teams which are still very competitive and are going to be competitive for the foreseeable future.
I like how they're showing us the Rangers room. Is like, who are we gonna take, guys? It's like, I don't know. You're drafting first overall.
I like how Jeff Gordon's the only guy in the room with no mask on. Yeah. As if we're not gonna be able to hear him through the mask and the microphone. Do you think Alexei Lafreniere sitting there like, guys, please just make the pick. We know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Do you think the Rangers are doing this on purpose? They're purposely playing into this right now, just sitting here being like, well, we have 4 minutes to make this pick, so we're gonna just wait. Wow. Ooh. That's an interesting comparison. Mikko Rantanen, I didn't see that one. Interesting.
Where do you think the number 1 goalie projected in this draft, Yaroslav Askarov, what do you think is a good fit for him? Because there's been a lot. I've seen him as high as number 8. I've seen him as low as 18.
I think, there are a lot of good fits for him, right? New Jersey needs a goaltender because the Corey Schneider experiment is clearly over. Even though Mackenzie Blackwood's been good, it can't hurt to have more than one prospect in the system because then you can just leverage one for another asset you need later on, right? Ottawa could use a goaltender.
Craig Anderson's not going to return to them next year,
right?
So
they could use a goaltender. Carolina needs a goaltender. Edmonton needs a goaltender, but Edmonton's need for a goaltender is more immediate. They're not going to want to wait on a guy to Askarov to come over. Edmonton's looking to compete now, so
well, they need to do something.
But the point still remains. They're in the market for a goaltender. Calgary's in the market for a goaltender. LA, a rebuilding team now. LA could use a goaltender. San Jose could have used a goaltender, a young goaltender at that. Arizona's pretty set now. All the other teams are pretty much set, but the big ones that need it are like Carolina, because Carolina's also looking to be competitive now. So their move will probably be more in the immediate term, like a guy like Braden Holtby or whoever enters the market. They might even make a move. I'm surprised they didn't leverage Joel Edmondson into Jake Allen, because that would have been a good pick for them. It would have been a good pickup. You have all those extra defensemen on that roster that you can use to then get something you really need, which is a goaltender, because Peter Mrazek, let's be honest, isn't the answer.
No, and Jake Allen, for what it's worth, at times was better than Jordan Binnington last year.
Jordan Binnington was like incredibly underwhelming at some points last year, including in the playoffs. Incredibly underwhelming. Thanks, Pierre. They have become must-see TV.
Rangers on the clock here. About 45 seconds left until...
They're really milking this, huh?
The assumption being that...
What if they don't pick him? What if they pick Tim Stutzel?
I mean, we had a long discussion about how dumb that would be on their part. I agree.
I mean, I love Tim Stutzel. I would love to see Tim Stutzel in a Ranger uniform, but not at the cost of Alexis Lafreniere.
I mean, from what I understand about Lafreniere, right? Like, this is a very deep draft. And a lot of the players are on similar levels, where Lafreniere is really the only standout, but he's not so much a standout that it's like, oh, he's like Connor McDavid or like Austin Matthews.
See, here's the thing. I feel like Tim Stutzel could be on his level in terms of just raw talent. And the real reason I say that is because Tim Stutzel's been playing overseas in the DEL for this whole time.
Playing with men.
Right. The other issue is the league itself isn't very great. Oh, here we go.
All right, so the Rangers pick is in. We're going to take a listen in here.
With the first pick in the 2020 NHL Draft, the New York Rangers are proud to select from the Rimouski Oceanic.
Okay, thank God.
Lafreniere.
There was a split second before he opened his mouth that I was like, I swear to God. Oh, Alexis Lafreniere's stream broke. Okay.
So Alexis Lafreniere, left winger from Rimouski Oceanic, goes to the New York Rangers. Assumed that he's going to be immediately inserted into the lineup.
The very first overall pick in New York Ranger history, by the way.
What does this mean to the Rangers organization immediately? Because we saw last year that, if we take a look at some of their team stats here, the New York Rangers were a top 10 team in goals for and for power play, and they were bottom 10 for goals against penalty kill percentage. Obviously, this doesn't really fill the need on the back end. But what does this do as far as, the outlook of the New York Rangers next season?
I mean, they're going to be scary. The offense is definitely going to be a lot scarier next year than it was this year, especially with Capo Caco taking big strides like he did in the playoffs and looking more comfortable playing like a real, North American game and using his size well. I mean, and the Rangers, they're not going to be pushovers. I mean, they're going to be pretty big. I mean, Lafreniere's not small. Caco's not small. Zibanejad's not a small guy. So, I mean, I think the Rangers are trending in all the right directions here. I just think the next thing they have to do is address the need on defense, which there's going to be a pretty decent free agent market this year, so the Rangers should be able to find something out there. I mean, I even saw somebody saying that like Ron Hainsey would be a nice pick for the Rangers to sit on that bottom six penalty kill, And I could see it, you could pay Ron Hainsey like $800,000 just to play because he's so old now. I think he's close to 40. So, I mean, I don't think that'd be a bad pick, especially because this is essentially all you're using on the back end now. You're not looking to lock any guy in long term because you don't want to log jam those young guys.
I mean, yeah. I mean, really, I think the guy with the longest contract at this point is Jacob Trouba. He signed a 7-year deal. And they obviously have other effective young defensemen like Tony DeAngelo, Adam Fox. Ryan Graves is a nice, defensive defenseman type guy.
Well, Ryan Graves is gone. He's in Colorado.
Oh, that's right. They traded Ryan Graves. That's right.
We have Ryan Lindgren.
Ryan Lindgren. That's what I was thinking of. Not Ryan Graves. Lindgren.
Which, by the way, Graves would have been nice to still have because he had a great year in Colorado, but whatever.
But they're really missing that true matchup. Hey, Crosby or hey, Kane's on the ice now. You're getting out on the ice. That real matchup type defenseman, which they can address with using that later pick, like you said, and leveraging that with perhaps a player that might not fit in the top six, whether it be a Buchnevich or maybe they think just spitballing that, like Filipino's ready to take that next step, but he's not going to quite beat anybody out there in that top six. They have that ability to leverage that now. Would have been now. Here's an interesting thing because they could have traded down and still taken a center for that top six. They could have gotten Quentin Byfield, but the LA Kings are now on the clock. And do you think that they're gonna go with Byfield, Stützle, or do you think that they go off the board a little bit here?
Well, I think the LA Kings are in an interesting point, a spot in their rebuild because it's just starting, so they need any sort of marquee player, like blue chipper, to build around. So at this point, I could see them taking literally anything, like
just best available player.
Yeah, Tim Stützle, like whoever's up there, like whatever they feel is the best available player left on the board, which only their scouts know and their general managers know. We can see what Bob McKenzie has everybody ranked as. We can see all Craig Button's rankings, but only the LA Kings know what the LA Kings are thinking. So whatever they deem to be the best available player, I think is what they take. I don't think they're looking to draft by position here.
I can see them taking Quentin Byfield because, the previous LA Kings teams, they like to build through the middle. They had a strong center core with Anze Kopitar and Mike Richards being your 1 and 2 for a long time. Quentin Byfield's a big center. He's gotten a lot of comparisons to, other big centers like Anze Kopitar was a big name thrown around comparing to Quentin Byfield. I could see them building through the middle, but honestly, I think LA needs to take
look at that tuxedo on Quentin Byfield. He is snazzy.
The white tux.
Yeah, good for him. Styling and profiling, bro.
Oh my god! I just realized it's got to be so late where Stützle is right now.
I wonder if he came over. Oh, he's definitely at home because he's definitely. It's what is it like 7 hours difference? Or what is it like 3 a.m.?
He's like, I'm tired, guys, please.
Yeah, he probably woke up early. He probably went to bed at like 5 p.m. for this.
But yeah, 6'4", 215 pounds. I mean, that's an LA Kings player right there.
Stützle's no pushover though. 6'1", 187.
I think that the LA Kings might want to take their rebuild in more of an offensive direction. Maybe you take Tim Stützle because he is labeled as the more dynamic offensive threat.
I mean, he's getting compared to Patrick Kane, Matt Barzal. I mean, there are a lot of really dynamic comparisons for him. I think he's going to be really exciting. The real thing is, like, Quentin Byfield seems to be a little bit of a project. He's not ready. From what I'm understanding about him, he's going to take at least a year or two before he comes into the NHL, and he's not going to be gangbusters at any point. He's never going to just step into the league and put up 100 points. But I think he is going to at some point be a very, very good elite number 1 center in the NHL. I just think he's got some time he needs some time to grow into that big body of his. That being said, the LA Kings have time to give him. They have all the time in the world. Like I said, they just started this rebuild. They haven't traded away any of their big players yet. So, I mean, Drew Doughty's still on this roster. Kopitar, Dustin Brown, Jonathan Quick. So, they're really, it doesn't matter who they take because either way, they have nothing but time. They have at least 4 or 5 years before they're ready to compete.
So, the LA Kings pick is in, so we're going to take a listen in here.
The second selection in the 2020 NHL Draft will be made by Vice President and General Manager of the Los Angeles Kings, Rob Blake.
Nice Zoom background, Rob Blake.
Why did they put it on a podium? Why isn't he in the
Los Angeles Kings are proud to select with the second pick in the 2020 Entry Draft from Sudbury Wolves.
Quentin Byfield, okay.
Yeah, so they're building through the middle, which I think honestly is a smart thing to do.
I mean, both their choices were through the middle. It was Tim Stützle or Quentin Byfield, which are both centermen, so they had good options at either position, so
I think that's a smart choice. I mean, if you look at specifically West Coast hockey, right? The Kings, the Sharks, and the Anaheim Ducks. You have your big centers, Kopitar, Ryan Getzlaf,
Jumbo,
Joe Thornton, Joe Pavelski, big, strong type centers. And Quentin Byfield definitely has that potential. And like you said, even if he's a couple of years away, I mean, the Kings are probably at this point 5 to 7 years away from competing for a Stanley Cup. So you can give him 3 years, grow into that body, you start getting ready, and it's like, oh, guess who's ready now? Quentin's ready.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, here it is. Here's the comparison. Anze Kopitar. Ability to play keep away with the puck, excellent hands in tight, and determined everywhere on the ice.
Which I think that's important because, look, I mean, I don't want to be this way, but there are a lot of scoring centers in the NHL. Guys like Kopitar, who can put up 80 points and also win a USLK trophy, are incredibly rare.
I mean, there's only like 2 or 3 of them in the whole league. It's Anze Kopitar and Patrice Bergeron, really.
Yeah, so if you had the opportunity to draft one,
Take it.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You can find yourself, a Timothy Stützle type guy, and that's not to knock anything Timothy Stützle is doing. But, like, you can find yourself
you can find
a
an
lot
offensive.
of scoring wingers.
Yeah.
I think Byfield's really like a unicorn, like that 200-foot center that's as big as he is, as young as he is. I mean,
And
he's
as good
only
as he
gonna
is.
get bigger.
And the other thing is, like, he skates well for a guy of his size. At 6'4", 200 and whatever pounds he was playing this year, he skates well for a guy of that size. So, I mean, it's like you said, he's only going to get stronger. So, at being as big as he is, and here it is, we're talking about him being a net front presence, and like he should be. He's 6'4", and he should grow into be like 215, 220 pounds. He should be a menace in front of the net for a lot of teams. Like, he should be a menace in front of his own net too. I mean, like, the opposing centerman's gonna have a hard time trying to get in there to find any loose pucks if he's as good in his own end as they say he is.
I think that's an excellent pick for the LA Kings at 2.
See, now here's where I think Ottawa takes Tim Stützle because they need scoring, and you have Thomas Chabot, and you have Brady Tkachuk, and who do you want to playing with Brady Tkachuk? Oh, guess what? You have Timothy Stützle skating with Brady Tkachuk. That's going to be disgusting.
I just think the fact that he dropped beyond numbers 1 and 2 when he was at one point thought to be in contention to be number 1 with Alexis Lafreniere, I think at that point it's a slam dunk. You just have to take Timothy Stützle. Not to mention, guess what? After this third pick, you got another pick coming up in 2 picks anyway.
And you could take guys like Alexander Holtz or, any number of goal scorers that are there that just be like, hey, we got Tim Stützle and we got this goal scoring winger, and now we also have Brady Tkachuk and Timothy and Thomas Chabot in the system already. So, like, here you go. Go out there and score goals.
Or even assuming if the Detroit Red Wings, even if the Detroit Red Wings take a defenseman, say you want to spread out your draft a little bit, really from what I've read, you got Jamie Drysdale, who's a Cale Makar type player, and you got Jake Sanderson, who's a Matt Dumba type player. And I think, there are a lot of teams that definitely need a Matt Dumba type player. That's why I was saying maybe the Rangers could have traded down and taken Sanderson because he's that defensive defenseman, big, hard body. But I mean, look, if you're the Ottawa Senators, like you said, they're just taking the best available player. So, like, oh no, they took Cale Makar 2.0. Well, we can just get Matt Dumba 2.0 now.
Oh no, we can get Patrick Kane 2.0. Like, it's just like, oh no, we have any number of these amazing players. Oh, we have to draft Lucas Raymond. Oh no, he's getting comparisons to being some of the best skating, scoring wingers in the NHL. Oh no. Like, Ottawa's in an ideal spot right here. Like, they have hit a home run with this 3 and 5. I mean, in reality, it should have been 1 and 3, but like, I'm not gonna argue with it.
And then, not to mention, they still have 3 second-round picks.
And they have, I think, like 2 or 3 third-round picks too.
They have 9 picks in the first 3 rounds, which you can leverage into whatever you want.
Literally whatever you want. See, here's what I was saying about Tim Stützle before we started recording was I think Timothy Stützle could have competed for number 1 if he came over and played North American hockey, because his numbers in the DEL were just ridiculous for an 18-year-old playing against grown men. But let's be honest, the competition's not that great.
No.
Like, the DEL is considered, I think, the 5th or 6th best hockey league in the world. If he'd been playing in the SHL and putting up numbers, it's like, okay, different. He would totally be in competition for number 1 because the SHL is the 3rd best hockey league the 3rd best hockey league in the world. So it makes sense. But I think because he was sheltered from like all the spotlight playing in the DEL, a lot of people didn't hear about him until after the World Juniors, where he came over and was absolutely nasty, where teams like, wait, this guy's actually really good. Maybe we should pay more attention to this.
It's also one of those things where it's like, maybe he put up however many points he put up in the DEL, but what would that translate to in like the OHL or the QMJHL?
I actually read a scouting report back in February or March from a guy I follow on Twitter where he broke down what the value of a goal is averaged out at in the DEL based on what it counts for as an NHL goal. And it actually worked out that like he was scoring at a similar pace to a lot of the guys playing in the SHL, but his point production was higher than theirs because their competition was higher, was better. So in reality, he's playing on a similar level as guys like Alexander Holtz and like Lundell and any of the guys that are playing over there.
It's just that the perception is, it's only the DEL.
And it's amazing that he managed to play himself into being considered the second best available player on the board. Like I said, I think if he'd been playing North American hockey, he would have been competing with Lafreniere for number 1. It would have been like a Jack Hughes, Capo Caco situation, where it's like you can't go wrong with either pick, and you really can't go wrong with any of those picks that were up there.
At this point in the draft, no. And, it's a great thing for German hockey with Stützle,
And
Draisaitl, Mo Seider. A lot of good things coming out of German hockey. But the Ottawa Senators' number 3 pick is in, so we'll take a listen in here.
The services of a special guest who also happens to be a graduate of the University of Ottawa.
The Jeopardy host.
Alex Trebek.
He's a big hockey fan.
Johnny. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Jeopardy. Our category today is the NHL. And here is the clue for
This is actually kind of cool. I'm
the third pick in the 2020
Who is Timothy Stützle?
Ottawa Senators choose this player. The correct response, who is Tim Stützle?
Yes, Tim Stützle of DEL.
Oh, he looks
Mannheim.
sharp too. Look at that tuxedo.
So Tim Stützle goes to
You just hear him call him Tim Stützle?
I've heard his name say both ways. I've heard Stützle and Stützle, and I don't know which way is technically correct, but I'm just going to keep saying Stützle.
I mean, that's how it looks like it's spelled. There's no like accent. I also don't know how Germans pronounce it. Like, we're anglicizing this, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a German word. We don't actually.
Stützle.
Yeah, like, so to anglicize, it's going to be wrong in any way we do it. It's like Russians when they come over. Like, Evgeny Malkin's name, I think, is spelled with a Y. But, like, we anglicized
Well, I mean, look
it.
at how many different spellings of Shosturkin there is. Shosturkin, Shosturkin.
Yeah.
Like, it's a mess.
So it's like, once you try anglicizing any
He's
of
got one
these.
of the New Jerseys, too. Which,
That's
by the way,
fire.
those new Ottawa Senators, I think, are pretty good looking.
They're
pretty
fire.
sharp.
Honestly, after seeing it on a player, they're fire. They even gave him his number, too. Like, they didn't give him the one that says 20. It has his number on it. That's fire.
So, Tim Stützle, if you're the Ottawa Senators, do you
he
play
plays.
him right away?
Yeah, he plays. He comes right over and plays. You're not expecting to you're not expecting to make the playoffs or compete or anything. So why not give him the ice time? He might fall flat on his face adjusting to North American hockey at first, but like, so what? Like, you're not expecting to be anywhere close to a playoff spot. So why not give him the ice time? And I don't think it'll be particularly detrimental to his growth. I mean, honestly, I don't think it is anything. I don't think it'd be detrimental to his growth in the fact that, like, he comes over and plays on a non-competitive team in a number 1 center role and gets all that ice time. As long as you continue to treat him like that without changing the perception of him. You know what I mean? I could see being detrimental to him if they sent him over, if he came over and they played him in that role, and the next year, like, all right, Tim, you're playing in, like, a third line role. Like, I could see that absolutely stunning his growth.
Yeah.
But if he comes over this year and they throw him on, like, the third line, he gets some ice time, and throughout the season you gradually increase his ice time, and he gets used to it, why not? What do you have to lose?
There's a lot of competing thoughts in whether or not you bring over Europeans, specifically Europeans, over immediately. And honestly, I think it's all about laying out the expectations
yeah.
for who he is and what he's going to do, right? So if you bring over a European kid and you're like, all right, you're playing on a third line, but we're going for the cup this year, you need to be a matchup guy and lock people down. It's like, that's a lot of pressure on a young guy to learn the game.
I don't mean to cut you off, but the fact that they're comparing him to Patrick Kane and everything they're saying about him is essentially that he flies by the seat of his pants is incredible. Like, they're just like, yeah, these guys just go out there and they just do whatever they want.
They just play hockey.
We don't know. There's no, like, they just fly by the seat of their pants. Whatever opens itself up to them is what they're going to find.
And I mean, honestly, if you look at for the Ottawa Senators, even when they were competing, they really didn't have a player outside of Erik Karlsson who did that. I mean,
unless you went back to, like, Jason Spezza and Danny Heatley.
But like, you had your Mark Stones and your Mike Hoffmans, but they weren't, like, as creative as somebody like Patrick Kane or, in this case, Timothy Stützle.
What do you think Detroit does it for? Do you think they take Jamie Drysdale? I think they should, but, like, what do you think they should do it for? Because they have holes everywhere in that lineup.
I think you take whatever available player you perceive to be the best. Mo Seider's, obviously, at this point, it's more evident that he's a little bit more of a project. He's going to take some time adjusting to the North American game, which is fine. I mean, look, let's be honest here. Most North American defensemen don't play big minutes in the NHL until they're like 23 at youngest. Most of them take a long time to adjust.
Learning to play defense at the highest level is the hardest thing to do.
Right. So the fact that Mo Seider is going to take a little bit longer, totally fine.
And they have time to work on a project. Like,
honestly, I've read that Jake Sanderson could be even better than Jamie Drysdale, but I think for the type of team that we can see the pieces in Detroit coming together, when you look at guys like Larkin, Zadina, Mantha, Mo Sider. You see that they're going for a mix of skill and size. And I think with a team like that, you're going to need a Cale Makar type player, that puck moving, offensive defenseman.
Look at the Detroit teams that were competitive. They had Nicholas Lidstrom and Brian Rafalski. Like Nicholas Lidstrom is kind of like their Mo Sider. He was the Swiss Army. I'm not saying Mo Sider is going to be like Nick Lidstrom, but they played the game a similar way. They were Swiss Army knives. They could do everything on the ice. Is Nick Lidstrom's offense going to be a little better than Mo Sider's? Yes, of course. Because Nick Lidstrom is arguably, if not arguably, the greatest defenseman of all time. I mean, we think he is.
That's a sick setup right there.
So that is sick. That's cool. I like their war room. I like how every team's got their own little war room set up, except for LA, who sent Rob Blake into like the hallway to make the pick, even though they showed the war room. I mean, even the Rangers' war room was a nice setup. It was like all wood and everything. But what is this? Is this nice selected Steve Yzerman? By the way, this is what I've read about the 1983 Stanley Cup draft, the 1983 NHL Entry draft. They settled for Steve Yzerman.
Oh no!
Because guess who got taken off the? Guess who they wanted that went off the board before him? Pat LaFontaine, hometown kid. Pat LaFontaine is from Michigan. Played his junior hockey in Michigan. The Islanders grabbed him third, and they were like, "Oh, I guess we're gonna settle for Steve Yzerman." It's like, settle for Steve Yzerman? He was captain for like 21 seasons or something crazy. He won you 4 Stanley Cups or 3.
Yeah,
it's like.
But no, I do think you take Jamie Drysdale because I mean. Every team, look, again, you can find guys like those hard-hitting defensive defensemen. You can generally find those type of guys in free agency because there's just, I mean, it's easier to find those guys than it is to find an Erik Karlsson or a Cale Makar. Generally speaking, teams don't let those kind of guys go. So if you have an opportunity to draft one and, teach him what it's going to mean to play 2020 Detroit Red Wings hockey, why not?
Right. I could also see him taking Cole Perfetti though at that because depth down the middle would really be a strength. I mean, that's a hallmark of Steve Yzerman teams going back to like the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, you had Steven Stamkos, and then you had Tyler Johnson, and now you have Steven Stamkos, Tyler Johnson, and Braden Point. Even though Steven Stamkos might be on his way out or he's playing on a wing, whatever. That being said, I can see him taking Cole Perfetti because he'd be a really good number 2 center, and that top power play would be disgusting. But
I think they take a defenseman, if nothing else, as insurance. If Mo Sider flames out, then we still have a backup. I
agree 100%. I think Jamie Drysdale has to be the pick here.
So the Red Wings pick is in, so we'll take a listen in here.
Amateur scouting, Chris Draper.
All right, Chris Drapes. My dude, Chris Draper.
Think he's got enough hairspray in?
In the 2020 entry draft, the Detroit Red Wings are very excited to select from Frölunda, Lucas Raymond.
Wow,
that's off the board. Wow, they reached way down the lineup for that one.
But that's a hallmark of Steve Yzerman drafting, is it not? I mean, was way off the board.
I like Lucas Raymond though. Lucas Raymond I mean, you're gonna stick Lucas Raymond on that top line with Dylan Larkin. That's gonna be disgusting. Look how fast fast they're gonna be.
Yeah.
That's going to be scary, dude. Larkin, just those 2 players. And then you have Mantha, who might not be as fast as those 2, but Mantha can keep up. I mean, he'll keep up. And like you said, Mo Sider's a little bit of a project, but like Detroit's in an interesting spot. Detroit's in the middle of probably what's going to be a long rebuild, and we all know that.
It's the price you pay for a 25-year playoff streak.
Well, it's the price you pay for the last 5-10 years of it being just making trades to continue.
Raymond says, "I'm a mix between Mitch Marner and Artemi Panarin." That's his own words there.
Interesting. Well, I wonder what their comparison is for him. Oh my God! I mean, you can't teach that. You can't teach that. Look at the way he just shot that puck.
I mean, I think that this pick more than anything shows us the direction in which Steve Yzerman is taking his team, which is speed.
Yeah, speed and size.
Talent. And
which is exactly what he did with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tampa Bay Lightning for a long time weren't a very big team, and that was the biggest reason why they struggled in the playoffs. Then this year they come out, they get Pat Maroon, Barclay Goodrow, win the Stanley Cup. But the majority of that Tampa Bay Lightning team, let's not forget, that was a Steve Yzerman team. It was essentially like Steve Yzerman baked the cake, and then Breezewell put the icing on.
Right. I mean, it's pretty much what happened with St. Louis. I mean, what's his name? John Davidson drafted, I think, 7 or 8 of the players that ended up winning the Stanley Cup there. So he essentially baked most of the cake, and then he left, and then they finished baking the cake without him.
So they got Philip Zadina, Mo Seider,
I forgot they
and
have Joe
Lucas
Valeno.
Raymond. Yeah, and so you're seeing that speed
Michael Rasmussen, I forgot about.
and talent is an emphasis of this Tampa Bay Lightning team, because you can find your role players. You can pick them up in free agency, or you can trade for them. It's going to cost you a pretty penny, like we saw guys like Blake Coleman going for like a second this year.
Or
but you
first,
can get them.
yeah.
It's very difficult to get the kind of skill that Lucas Raymond brings to the table.
You can't, and it's also hard to find that level of just game-breaking speed, like just flat out and out speed. I think he's like on a similar level to guys like Connor McDavid, and like, I mean, not to the level that Connor McDavid can skate, but in the way that like his speed can break the game open for him. Because I mean, and to go with that, it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, like, he's very clearly got great vision on the ice. He knows how to find those soft spots to score those goals. He knows how to use that speed to find the openings and the soft spots all over the ice. So I think him and Dylan Larkin together are going to be electric. And I think you bring him over to play too. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't, right?
And sure, maybe he's not the biggest guy. In fact, he's only like 182 pounds. But you stick him on a line with a guy like Anthony Mantha. Mantha can be the guy that goes into the corners, wins the puck battles.
I
And
mean,
gets
you have
down
Tyler
front.
Bertuzzi to protect him if you have to. I mean, Bertuzzi knows how to scrap it up. He's not the biggest guy in the world, and he's not a nuclear deterrent. But I mean, like, he's still a
He's a
deterrent.
gamer.
Yeah, he'll go out there and I mean, he knows his role.
Every Mike Bossy needs his John Tonelli.
Right.
Mike Bossy wasn't winning puck battles in the corner.
No.
John Tonelli was the bulldog that won the puck battle and gave it to Mike Bossy in front.
I mean, look at the Rangers in the 70s, right? You had Vic Hatfield playing with Jean Rattel and Rod Gilbert. Jean Rattel and Rod Gilbert didn't go anywhere near the corners. Vic Hatfield was in there by himself all the time, and he was winning puck battles. So, like you said, you need guys like that. I think this Detroit team's got a really nice team on paper. They have some defensemen that... they have defensemen that they were playing this year that they're pretty high on. What was his name?
I forget.
I think he was he played college before this. I don't remember. It's a North American kid, though.
So for the Ottawa Senators, I'm assuming, are you going to look up?
I was going to look his name up. Yeah.
So Ottawa Senators here, I don't think you take a defenseman if you're the Ottawa Senators here. You have Shabbat, you have Jacob Bernard Docker.
They also got, what's that kid's name?
The kid from Vegas.
Yeah. Sandstrom, I think it is, or so, something like that. He's Swedish.
No, it was the kid that we all were like, why is Vegas just throwing him out the door? Vegas got him for basically nothing and then threw him away for basically nothing. And I didn't
They got him
understand
for.
it.
They traded him in the Mike Stone trade.
Let's see. I forget his name. What's his name?
We're essentially SpongeBob right now, running around in the zone. What's his name? Because both of us just drew blanks on both these kids' names, simultaneously. Did you see Justin Abdelkader got placed on unconditional waivers for purpose of buyout this year?
Oh, he's going to be bought out.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I mean, he's making like $4.5 million to do nothing. He scored a goal this year. You have to trade him. You have to get rid of him, right? Cholowski. That's his name.
Dennis Cholowski.
Dennis Cholowski. They're big on him. I mean, Ericsson's probably gone. Philip Roenick, they're pretty high on too, who I think is pretty good. I forgot they got Mark Stahl.
Mark Stahl.
I mean, Detroit's not. I mean, listen, I'm not
Eric
saying
Branstrom. That's his name. Eric Branstrom. I was like,
I was thinking, I confused him with Rasmus Sandin. That's who it is, because Toronto's got Sandin and Liljegren both getting ready to play.
Yeah.
That's also really interesting to me because remember Timothy Liljegren going into that draft? Everybody talked about how he was going to be like the guy, and then for some reason that he became more of a project player. I mean, he really could. Both him and Sandin or both could be the answer for Toronto on that blue line. I mean, they might be able to answer some of those questions internally, especially because they have Justin Hull still. Well, he's not under contract. He's an RFA, but they have some RFAs they need to sign. Ooh, Ottawa's pick is in.
Do you think they go with the center?
I think they go Cole Perfetti.
Best available player?
Yeah.
So we'll take a
Like I
listen
said, I
here.
mean, you have Cole Perfetti and Tim Stutzel playing 1-2. Why not?
2020 NHL draft will be made by Ottawa Senators General Manager Pierre Dorian.
That hairline's got to get some work, buddy.
First of all, I'd like to thank Alex Trebek for helping us with the selection.
I'd like to thank Mr. Trebek.
Oh.
Stutzla to the organization.
Stutzla.
Sénateurs d'Ottawa sont très fiers de choisir. The Ottawa Senators are real proud to select from the United States
Jake
National
Sanderson?
Team Development Program and the University of North Dakota, Jake Sanderson.
Jake Sanderson. So they
Wow.
do go with the defenseman. They
They went off the board for Sanderson, too, because he was ranked behind Cole Perfetti and...
Did they not realize he got drafted? Or is he just depressed because he's going to the Senators?
Watching the draft from North
I wonder how behind their stream is.
Clearly on a delay right here, but
6'1.5", 185. I mean, he's gonna be the. I mean, I like this pick though, because you can play him with Thomas Chabot. Thomas Chabot's the guy that's flying by the seat of his pants, like we talked about. So you're gonna have Timothy Stützle and Thomas Chabot playing high risk hockey out there, and you have a guy like Jake Sanderson out there who's gonna be very responsible. Big. I mean, he's not the biggest guy, but he's 6'1", 185. I mean, that's not small by any stretch either.
Jake Sanderson's comparable was Jacob Slavin.
I mean, who wouldn't want Jacob Slavin on their team, especially when you have Thomas Chabot, whose comparison is Erik Karlsson, like
one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL. So they go off the board a little bit. I had seen a couple of mock drafts putting Sanderson over
Drysdale.
People were saying that while he is billed as a defensive defenseman, a hard-hitting Darnell Nurse type guy, that his offensive game has rounded into form as of late. He's found that extra step in the offensive zone, tried to generate a little bit more.
I mean, honestly, even if he never turns out to be like a guy, like a breakout offensive star, even if he only ever turns out to be like at best like a second power play unit quarterback, and he brings you that elite level defense, you gonna complain? I mean, that's exactly what Jacob Slavin turned into. He's like at best a second line power play quarterback because you have Dougie Hamilton, and he kills all your penalties, takes all your tough matchups. He does all of that, and are you really gonna complain that he didn't score 80 points? Absolutely not, because he's playing 25 minutes a night and against the toughest players out there, and he's doing a good job. That's an interesting pick. Josh Morrissey, huh?
Exceptional skater, competitive but subtle, stealthy on offense and defense.
I mean, I really like Josh Morrissey.
I don't know if that's necessarily stealthy when you just just blow a guy up in the neutral zone.
I mean, like, Josh Morrissey does play a little bit of a sneaky game. I can see them saying that about him, but I don't know if Jake Sanderson's as sneaky. Jake Sanderson's kind of like none of what he did there was sneaky. Like, his stick was out. He was in that guy's face. Like,
he just played him straight. But I think that this is a good pick for the Ottawa Senators because, listen, we both just said maybe you don't pick a defenseman because you have so many defensive prospects.
But you can never have too many.
But that's the thing with defensemen is you're really playing a numbers game. And look, maybe you should have gone with the center there because you do have some nice forward pieces, but not as many. I mean, obviously you picked up Tim Stützle, but I have no issue with this pick. I think it's a great pick, and like you said, he is literally like the perfect partner for Thomas Chabot.
And then, because then if you say you find another guy to play like in this mold, you can build like a really nice defensive core in Ottawa.
Super balanced defensive.
I mean, you have Eric Brandstrom who's coming up, and then you have Chabot, Sanderson, Bernard Docker. Like Ottawa in like 2-3 years is gonna be real good. If they find a goaltender, they're gonna be really good. I gotta hand it to Pierre Dorion, honestly. Like, I thought he was crazy at first, especially in 2017 when they started tearing it down and they drove Erik Karlsson out of town. But like, to be fair to Pierre Dorion, it wasn't his fault. I mean, like, the ownership essentially drove Erik Karlsson out of town
because
because
they didn't want to pay him.
Right. Well, and that's because they couldn't. I mean, one owner suing the other owner. So, So Pierre Dorion got essentially fed a shit sandwich and had to smile through the whole thing. And here he is coming out the other side, still smiling because
he just picked up friggin' Jake Sanderson and Timothy Stützle.
Like, you might have fed him a shit. That's his dad. They're comparing him to Chris Chelios for a second, and I was like, what? I was gonna be like, excuse me, Chris Chelios? But no, it's his dad. Okay, I didn't know his dad was in the NHL. That's interesting.
So for another American in the top 5. This top 5 has been real international.
Spicy. Yeah,
I think it was Canadian. German, Swiss, and American.
Yeah.
Or not Swiss, Swedish. Lucas Raymond's Swedish. Who are you taking if you're Anaheim? Are you just like slam dunk Jamie Drysdale?
Maybe. I mean, or you take Cole Perfetti.
You
need somebody. I mean, they have Stam Steele. They have Ricard Raquel, still marginally young. I mean, they have some young pieces they could play. They have that French kid. What's his name? Comtois.
Do you think that maybe they lean towards who might be the most NHL ready? Because all indication out of Anaheim is that we really haven't seen them start the rebuild yet. John Gibson's only to get something out of these next couple of years, or do you think that they should just be like, listen, like, the boat has sailed, the division is better, let's just take the best available prospect, maybe not the one who's the most NHL ready?
So truth is, right, it's what I think they should do and what's probably going to happen is two different things because we very clearly can see the writing on the wall, right? We're looking at Anaheim from the outside, and it's a lot easier for us to say, listen, it's over, right? If I was sitting across from Anaheim's GM, who I don't even know his name anymore, if I was sitting across from him and I just said, hey, listen, it's over, he'd probably hit me with a list of reasons why it's not over and all these players and what they have and what they think they can do. Whereas I'd be like, yeah, but like this guy's this, you know what I mean? So what they do is, are they in like
they're in like a cubicle setup there. That looks like my office building. Like they're drafting.
I like how
from,
like socially
my office
distant
building.
it is too. Like everybody's got masks on, everyone's like way away from each other. It's like, okay. And then you cut to like all the people at their houses and it's like them and all their friends sitting there. I mean, to be fair, these kids are like Europeans, so like Europe's whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jamie Drysdale's a slam dunk, right?
Well, if you're taking a defenseman, you're taking him. So the question is, do you think that you need to take a defenseman?
We'll find out. Pick is in, right?
So
I'd take him.
Anaheim Ducks pick is in, so we'll take a listen in here.
Anaheim Ducks Executive Vice President and General Manager Bob Murray.
It is still Bob Murray. Okay. I
Sixth
thought he got fired.
in the 2020 NHL Draft.
What we've all been waiting for. The pick is in.
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 What if they had all these people record this saying the pick is in and then they traded it?
Then you use it for like another pick, like your second round pick. I don't know.
Just a total waste of time.
I mean, hey, it'd be their money they wasted, right?
The social media manager's like, really, guys? I did all this work.
I'd really like to see Anaheim go back to their classic jerseys too.
The sixth pick in the 2020 draft, the Anaheim Ducks are proud to select from the Erie Otters, Jamie Drysdale.
Jamie Drysdale,
It's a
so.
slam dunk. I mean, he's the fourth rated player, right? He was ranked 4 in the standings, like absolute slam dunk for them, and it's a nice piece. I mean, he might be ready to play. You can stick him in like a number 5, number 6 hole and play him on your second power play unit because he is going to be an offensive guy. And maybe you hang on to. I know we talked about them they should trade Cam Fowler and Hampus Lindholm, but maybe you hang on to those guys, and maybe this is the piece that puts you back in a competition. That threw me off so bad. That random jump cut back to Lafreniere. I was like, wait, why is he putting on? I was like, why is Jamie Drysdale putting on a Ranger jersey?
He's like, I'm actually going to New York, baby. Let's go.
That's cute. That like his mom got him like the confetti guns. That's cool. I'm actually really excited to see, I'm really like seeing how all these different families are setting up to celebrate their big night, and I like that it's like, for the most part, it's very like,
It's like homegrown.
yeah, it's
like
like them, their parents, their like their close friends. I really like that. I mean, like Timothy Stutzel's like in public somewhere, but that's a big deal for them. I mean, like he's probably a hometown hero.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So like I can understand, but even still, it's like you could see his parents were like, this is like, it's just so nice to see like how proud these communities are of these players because it's, I mean, they've reached the mountaintop. I mean, not necessarily the actual mountaintop, but they've reached the mountaintops thus far.
for most of these players, they're the best player that's ever come out of their hometown.
Probably.
So, you know, it means a lot to them. And it is nice to see. I mean, obviously, would you like to have the moment of walking across the stage and getting a jersey in front of everyone? Yeah, but I mean, it's nice to see that they're making the most of it.
Right. And like I think it's cute, and I think it's kind of cute to see how all the families are celebrating it themselves, right? Like who did what for who. Like
Right.
Quentin Byfield was at his house and his mom's like had like, the confetti guns and like all like the stuff, and like they all threw confetti at him when he got drafted, and it's like that's nice. Like it's cool. It's like, you know,
Because those are the people that get you there.
right. It's something you said, like there's a spectacle. Like I don't like, the spectacle of the draft is nice and all, and like yeah, you still get to like thank your family and stuff, but it's not the same. You still have to go down from the the top row all the way down to the stage and then onto the stage. This I feel like is very personal. It's very like they're celebrating with the people that got them there, and I think it's really neat to see that.
Kind of going back to what you were saying before about the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, if Jamie Drysdale's ready in 3 years, and assuming they don't trade anybody, or like if he's ready, right, and assuming the defensive core stays the same way it is, you're gonna have Cam Fowler, Hampus Lindholm, and Jamie Drysdale. So you have 2 offensive defensemen and a really good defensive defenseman. I mean, you add one more top 4 piece in there. I mean, that's one of the best top 4s in the NHL. I might have preferred to see them go the forward route because they are kind of weak in the forward department at this point. Sam Steele's projected to be a top 6 kind of guy. Ricard Raquel is like a middle 6 spark plug kind of player. They don't really have that,
I mean, they still have Ryan Getzlav, but Ryan Getzlav's best years are obviously behind him.
Yeah, I think he's like, what, 33?
I think he's 34. I mean, like,
Like they don't really even have a prospect that's like, yeah, like he's gonna be
I mean,
the game breaker.
Sam Steele is like the most high profile prospect they have right
Yeah.
now, and like all indications I'm seeing about Sam Steele is like his so. Sam Steele's a weird prospect that like his floor is very high, right? Like he's at very least going to hit the NHL level and be there. So his ceiling by comparison is also incredibly high. So at the very least he's going to make the NHL, but the ceiling he could be like an absolute game breaker up there. So he's realistically he's probably just going to be like a nice number one piece, right? But
There's nothing wrong with that.
no, absolutely
Yeah,
not. No, absolutely not. But that's just what I'm saying. Like the strangeness in that. Oh, okay. So they're still going to do the interviews. Where is he now?
He's like in a hallway.
Did they set up like a green screen for him? Oh no, he's in okay. He's in his room probably.
It's a big honor for me, obviously, Rangers.
He's got his AirPods in.
New York Rangers is
So I read an interview today with Tom Rennie. You might remember Tom Rennie is the former coach of the New York Rangers during the Jaromir Jagr era. But he's now CEO of Hockey Canada, right? So, which by the way, he's always been. He wasn't a great NHL coach, but Tom Rennie's actually really good at is identifying talent and developing talent. So it makes sense that he went on to be the CEO of Hockey Canada, which is like whole job is to
Develop
pick out talent and
Yeah.
develop talent. And he said that about Alexis Lafreniere that he's pretty much built to play in New York. His personality, he knows he's good, and he's confident, but he's not flashy. He still defers to like the veterans in the room. He still is very respectful of like the power structure. He's still but he also makes the four other guys on the ice around him better. He wants to pass the puck around. He's not a puck hog, which I think is important because a lot of guys, when they're young and they know they're young and they're better, I mean, we see it all the time when we play, right? You see a guy that knows he's better, he's just going to hold on to it and try to do it all. Whereas I think what makes Lafreniere so special is he knows he's better, but he also knows that like it's a team sport and he has to pass the puck, which is what made some of the best players of all time so effective, right? Like Wayne Gretzky and Sidney Crosby and all those guys. They knew they were better, but they knew that they would be better if their teammates were better with them, which I think is important. So I'm really excited to see Alexis Lafreniere, and I mean, like, that top power play unit could be absolutely lethal for the Rangers, right? Think about what that top power play unit's going to look like now. Panarin, Zibanejad, Tony DeAngelo, Alexis Lafreniere, and Chris Kreider. I mean, that's pretty nasty. And if you want to replace Chris Kreider with Capo Caco, you can. Like, it's pretty much interchangeable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, personality is a big thing when it comes to New York. We've seen certain personalities work out. We've seen certain personalities not work out. I mean, I think we all remember how Dan Boyle basically left, like,
Everybody hated him at the end of his tenure here.
Yeah, whereas we saw guys, who are professional and kind of not keep to themselves, but kind of just know how to handle themselves, like Matt Zuccarello, Henrik Lundqvist, who his name's been thrown around with the Washington Capitals. Very interesting.
Not going to get into that. Yeah.
The New Jersey Devils pick is in. Do they go for the goaltender here? Or do you think that you have to take Cole Perfetti now that he's dropped all the way
Honestly,
to
if I'm the
7?
Devils, I'm going for Alexander Holtz. I need a
pure
goal-scoring
sniper.
winger. Yeah. I mean, you have Nico Hischier already, and you have Jack Hughes. Two playmaking centermen.
The New Jersey Devils are proud to select from Djurgården right winger Alexander Holtz.
Wow, Steve.
See, the thing is, like, that was like an easy pick to figure out because, like, you could see the need on the roster, right? I mean, like, they lost Taylor Hall. They have two playmaking center icemen. There's no reason to add a third playmaking center iceman in Cole Perfetti. And Cole Perfetti can play on the left side, sure, but he's not a scorer. He's a playmaker. And it's like, okay, so what are you going to load your top lineup with three playmaking winger? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So this just makes a lot of sense to add, a scoring winger.
He's my favorite pick in this draft. And the reason is because just the way he shoots the puck and the way he controls the puck, they're comparing him to Philip Forsberg here. I see a lot of, obviously Jack Eichel's a centerman. I see a lot of Jack Eichel in him, just the way that he can control the play. And he can circle the wagons and find the open guy.
I don't like this Philip Forsberg comparison just because I really think Alexander Holtz is a way better goal scorer than Philip Forsberg is. I mean, like, this kid's got the potential to be like a 40, 50 goal scorer in the NHL.
People are saying that he's got as good a shot as, like, Patrick Laine. And
Patrick Laine's shot was compared to Alex Ovechkin's shot.
Ovechkin. Like, I mean, he just basically turns goalies into silly
look at their
putty.
first round picks for the last 3 years right there. Nico Hischier, Ty Smith, and Jack Hughes. You really don't have a need at center or defense to draft, and so the best available player to you right now is Alexander Holtz. Take him. This is a slam dunk if you ask me. absolute slam dunk on the part of the Tom Fitzgerald and the New Jersey Devils.
I'm just super excited because just the way he scores goals, I think, is unique. I think, honestly, if you ask me, he's the best goal scorer in the draft.
I mean, my favorite player in the draft is probably Timothy Stützle, just because I love the way he plays. I think the way he plays, like I said, like the flying by the seat of his pants, and like you never really know what he's gonna do because he doesn't know what he's gonna do. I think it's so entertaining to watch a guy like you can see, like even honestly, even Holtz, you can see these guys processing the game in real time, like Raymond and these guys, like goal scorers, and these guys, like that's what's so important about these guys. And I think it's so impressive about specifically this crop of talent is like you can see how high the hockey IQ is in all these guys. You can see, you know, how they're identifying what's going on the ice, and I just think all these players, I mean, you never really know, right? But I think at least the projection on all these players is they're all going to be very good NHLers.
Do you play Alexander Holtz next season?
Maybe. That's an interesting one because the Devils are in an interesting spot, right? Because they still have some older guys still there. I mean,
Like, which direction is this roster going?
right? Like, because last season after the drafting of Jack Hughes, everybody was like, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be in the playoffs, and I think in reality was like they never should have aimed that high because they made some really ill-advised moves like signing Wayne Simmons for $5 million.
I think they could have. It's kind of weird because drafting Alexander Holtz almost seems like he makes the Devils seem like the goal scoring type of team that they should have been last year. I mean, we said at the beginning of the season, we're like, all right, look, this Devils roster is probably going to be able to score a lot of goals, but can they keep the puck out of the net was the big question. Then the season started and they did neither.
Yeah, and then they lost Taylor Hall, so their offense all but dried up entirely.
But drafting Holtz makes it seem like, you know, and look, it's very, very evident at this point between Zacha, Hischier, Hughes, and Holtz that they're building the forward core. This is a team that's going to be built from the front end.
Well,
back.
I mean, because in all the years leading up to this, they drafted nothing but defensemen. They have Damon Severson, who's not that old. He's like 25. He's good. Ty Smith is looking to make a jump into the NHL. He was I think he was WHL Defenseman of the Year with the Spokane Chiefs. Like, they got pieces, and Ty Smith is going to be like that puck-moving offensive guy. Damon Severson's a little more defensive. They have some nice pieces. Like, I mean, and Mackenzie Blackwood looked pretty good behind a really you know, Swiss defensive team.
Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Who do you think this is going to ask you? What do you think Buffalo does here? Because they need a defenseman, but there are no defensemen available. Do you think they take Yaroslav Askarov?
No. I think if you're Buffalo, you're taking a guy who's going to be able to step in next year and help Jack Eichel.
Do you think it's Cole Perfetti or Marco Rossi then?
I think you have to get Jack Eichel some help.
Oh, absolutely.
You do not have. We're hearing rumors now about him wanting to leave, and he squashed those rumors. He said, "I want to stay." You don't have 3 seasons to wait for a guy at this point.
I think their best bet is Cole Perfetti because your top line can be Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, and Victor Olofsson, which was effective when it was together this year, and then you can have a second line of Cole Perfetti and I don't know, whoever you want to throw on there. I really don't know what that roster looks like. I haven't looked at it in a long time, to be honest with you. But I'm just saying, like having a Cole Perfetti as a number 2 center is a really nice option, especially when your top pairing is Rasmus Dahlin and Rasmus Ristolainen, whose name's been on the trade block. So you could trade Rasmus Dahlin to leverage for a winger to play with Cole Perfetti, and there you go, bada bing, bada boom. You have the top 6 that's actually worth something. You have 5 guys that can play.
Yeah, I think even if Drysdale or Sanderson were available at this point in the draft, I'm still not taking a defenseman if I'm Buffalo because they have a pretty good young crop of defensemen already. I mean, really just Ristolainen and Dahlin, like that's all you have to say, assuming they both stay.
Right.
That you don't need any more pieces beyond that. But
and that being said, they still have Jake McCabe too, who's
Yeah.
really good. I think he's really underrated.
they need to help Jack Eichel because I really don't think you're getting another 5 years out of Jack Eichel if you don't at least start
Make an
making steps
effort.
towards the
Yeah.
playoffs.
If you don't show him that you're making an effort to get better, he's gonna want to leave because why would you want to play for an organization that's not trying? That's honestly that's kind of
Their
it,
best
right?
year was his rookie season. They've only gotten worse.
And the sad part is they've only gotten more talent on the roster, which makes no sense. Like they've only added guys like Sam Reinhart's only gotten better. They added Victor Olofsson this year, and he was really good for them. He's probably going to be a 30-goal scorer riding shotgun with Eichel.
I mean, look, they have a hole in net, but you don't have 3 years to wait for Askarov.
No,
You just don't.
you have to sign somebody. I think they signed Braden Holtby, to be honest with you.
Kevin Adams.
So the Buffalo Sabres pick is in. We'll see who they take.
We would first like to congratulate the Tampa Bay Lightning on their Stanley Cup
I never realized how big this guy's forehead is.
I mean, he's new. They fired their GM last year.
Bro, he's literally like big brain, bro. Like
to announce from the Ottawa 67s and the Ontario Hockey League, Jack Quinn.
Wait, what?
what?
So
They
I'm gonna ask you-
skipped
I'm
on
gonna ask you a
Cole
question here.
Perfetti.
I'm gonna ask you a question here. So we're seeing a lot going on here. Do you think that these players moving around like this is less of an indictment on singular players, right? It's not so much that this player specifically has an issue. It's more so that these teams are addressing issues that they see with these other these other players are essentially all just so talented that it's interchangeable at this point. Like, I guess what I'm
Perfetti
asking
was
is,
ranked 4, 4, and 6.
so I guess essentially what I'm asking you is, do you think that the talent, like since Lafreniere was only slightly more standout than everybody, do you think the players at 2 through 10 at this point are all pretty much interchangeable in terms of how talented they are, and teams are just drafting these guys based on what their needs are?
I think so. I honestly, the fact that Cole Perfetti is dropped all the way to number 9, I don't think that's an indictment on how good of a hockey player he is. I just think that the teams ahead of them didn't have a need for a playmaking center. The Sabres don't need a playmaking center.
No, they need a
the
scoring
Devils don't
winner,
need a
yeah.
playmaking center. The Ottawa Senators maybe could have taken a flyer on him, or not a flyer. They probably could have taken him at 3 or 5. Maybe they feel like they've got their playmaking center with Colin White. I don't know, but I think at this point,
Tim Stützle too, who might be their playmaking center. So
I think teams are drafting based on not necessarily positional needs, but the type of player that they're looking for.
right.
And I genuinely don't think it's a knock on
I mean-
Cole Perfetti. It's just, look, these teams just don't need...
Because we're sitting here at 9 right now, right? And the number 5 ranked skater and the number 7 ranked skater are still on the board.
And maybe they take Jack Quinn because he is a right winger. Maybe he's going to play with Jack Eichel.
I mean,
That could be the thought process.
I mean, his ability to score the way he does is second to none. I mean, he scored the second most goals in the OHL. He had 52 goals this year. I mean, so what is his?
I didn't get a comparable for him.
Yeah, they didn't give us one either. Honestly, I don't think they expected Jack Quinn to go this high. So, because I think everything else I saw him, he was going like 11,
Jack
12.
Quinn was 12, 12, and 14.
Yeah, see, so like that's what I was saying. Like he was ranked to go like a.
Maybe their scouts feel like he was the most NHL ready, because I think they're possibly the team in this top 10 that has the most need for an immediate impact player outside of the Winnipeg Jets. Because like we said, honestly, you cannot go another 3 to 5 years without making the playoffs with Jack Eichel on his roster.
So-
it just cannot happen.
Where is Winnipeg drafting?
10.
10? Do you think they take Anton Lundell? Or do you think they take Marco Rossi if he's still available? Because Marco Rossi might be that perfect number 2 center for them. I mean, Lundell might be too, but Lundell is more of a two-way player, more so than...
If they wanted to go off the board, I really think they have a need for a Darnell Nurse-type defenseman with Caden Gooley, but that would be a little bit off the board for them.
Listen, I have a couple of young boys, and these are some inspiring words from Jack Quinn.
I mean, really,
Being a late bloomer,
you take a center, right? You need a second-line
So
center.
I
You
don't
need a
think-
second-line center real bad. You've needed one for 3 years.
I don't think you can go wrong with Rossi or Lundell. I mean, Lundell's more of like a two-way kind of guy, more 200-foot game. And I think Rossi's a little more of a playmaker, so you might want to take Rossi just because he might be a little more... He might be able to dish the puck to guys like, Ehlers and...
Line A if he's
Line
still
A
on the team.
a little more effectively. So I mean, like, and that's honestly that's been Line A's big complaint this whole time is he hasn't had somebody to play with. They're not playing him with Mark Scheifele because they don't want to take Ehlers and Wheeler away from Scheifele because they work so well together. So like you're just giving him ham scraps. Wait, did they just compare Jack Quinn to David Pasternak?
That's the kind of guy that Jack Eichel needs.
I mean, he scored 52 goals in the OHL. So I mean,
Yeah, and for... Well, we'll get to Winnipeg.
when they pick, but we have Minnesota's coming up there on the clock. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if you're Minnesota at this point, I still think your rebuild has just... Actually, they've committed more to the rebuild than I thought they would, except not really because they still traded for what's-his-face, Marks Johansson,
But yeah, they traded Eric Stahl, right?
and then Nick Bukestad. So
Oh, wait, isn't Eric Stahl in Buffalo right now?
yeah.
Interesting. So you can run a top 6 of Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, and Victor Olofsson together because they worked well together, and you can have Eric Stahl and Jack Quinn, and then you can have a power play with Jack Quinn, Rasmus Dahlin, Rasmus Ristolainen, Jack Eichel, and maybe Victor Olofsson. That's scary. Buffalo's offense should be good, and we said that about them this year too. So
If I'm Minnesota, I would be honest with you, I'm taking Askarov at this pick. And the reason is...
just take a flyer on him.
The reason is because they haven't... They started the rebuild kind of by not signing Koivu, trading Dubnyk, trading Zucker, trading Stahl, but they also kind of haven't because they still traded for Bukestad
They signed Maya Zuccarello.
and Marcus Johansson. So they kind of took 2 steps. They took like 3 steps in the right direction and then 2 steps backwards. So the indication here to me, is also that they're still in the market for a number 1 goalie. I don't think it's going to change anything. But if that's the case, then why not? If your thought process is that we're still not rebuilding, why wouldn't you take Yaroslav Askarov?
No, I agree. By the way, whoever this is we're looking at right now, I think that's Marco Rossi. His background is dope. I don't know where he is, but like that's sick. Is he Austrian?
No, that's not.
What
Austrian.
flag is that?
I don't think.
It's white and like maroon. I don't know. We'll find out.
So the Minnesota Wild pick is in.
But why is he's not even in like a suit or anything? You showed him a polo shirt.
He looks like a guy they took off the street.
I'd like to say hello to all our great
By the way, do you know what this reminds me a lot of? Even though I wasn't alive to see it, this reminds me of when the NHL draft used to be at the Queen Victoria Hotel in Montreal, where the teams would just sit at tables like you and I are right now and just draft for days. Because there were like 12 rounds back then.
from the Ottawa 67s of the OHL.
Marco Rossi. Cole Perfetti slides to 10, bro. So do you really think
Yeah,
this?
he is Austrian. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Do you really think this is this? So I really don't think this is an indictment on Cole Perfetti at all. I just think these players, because you like we were saying before, these players are all so interchangeable at this point. But like, I'm not complaining that I got Marco Rossi.
Yeah, I mean, he really only slid 1 spot from where he was projected to go by a majority of teams.
I think the real issue is that isn't like these guys aren't sliding, is that these other guys are just jumping. You know what I'm saying? These guys are just flying away. Like Jack Quinn went like 4 places ahead of where he was supposed to. Detroit's pick was picked like not like 6 places ahead of where he was projected to go. I mean,
Yeah, and it's just kind of a weird situation where, look, we're still sitting here. So at number 10, you have to take Cole Perfetti, right? If you're the Winnipeg Jets.
yeah, I think so. I mean, he's a perfect fit for them. I mean, this draft couldn't have gone any more perfect for them. I mean, they get their number 2 center to slide to them at 10.
Like, sure, they need help on the back end, for sure. But they don't have Jake Sanderson available to them at this point. So why would you not take a second-line center as good as Cole Perfetti is? Because he just so happened to fall into your lap.
And the other thing is, like, Caden Gooley, from what I'm understanding, his ceiling isn't as high as guys like Jake Sanderson or...
No.
Like, he's going to be, like, a number 4, number 3, number 4 guy at the height. So, like, that's good and all, but, like, you have guys who already have that projection. You know what I mean? You have Sami Niku. You have other young guys who can already, like, are projected to be number 3, number 4 guys. You don't need any more of those, and you don't have any young center icemen, so why wouldn't you take Cole Perfetti when he literally, like you said, falls in your lap like this? The guy who was number 4 in Central Scouting ranking literally falls into your lap. How do you not take him?
You need a second-line center. You got probably one of the best centers in the draft.
You need a second-line playmaker. And the best playmaking center iceman falls in... one of the best playmaking center icemen literally falls in your lap. If you don't take this, if you're Kevin Schaefer day off and you don't take this, I'd fire you. I swear to God, I'd fire him tomorrow. I understand like they have a plan and a vision, but like that plan and that vision should include giving Patrick Laine a number 2 center to work with. And if you can do it internally without having to trade a piece, you kind of have to do it.
And if nothing else, I mean, if you get a guy as good as Cole Perfetti and you're willing to play him in his first year of eligibility, maybe that's that little extra something that they need to buy another year or 2 of faith from Patrick Laine. Because all indication is that he's on the block, he might be moved out. And I don't really necessarily know if that's because... I mean, look, we all know that he requested a trade, right? Like, that's public knowledge at this point. But I don't know if it's necessarily that Patrick Laine requested a trade so much as, like, maybe Winnipeg just isn't as high on him as they used to be. But at the end of the day, if you can get him a center, there's no reason. I mean, he's scoring 30 goals basically playing with no center. I mean, he played with, like, Brian Little or, like...
I think the fact that Winnipeg isn't as high on him as they were, and they complain about how streaky it is, and it's like, look what he's doing with no help.
He's not playing with really anybody.
And that's why I think he wanted to trade out, because I think he felt that Winnipeg gave up on him and didn't really, like, they weren't putting him in positions to succeed.
Well, he felt slighted.
And to be honest, I'd agree. Winnipeg hasn't put Patrick Laine in a lot of situations to succeed. They haven't played him with Mark Scheifele, and when they did play him with Mark Scheifele, they had a lot of success. He scored a lot of goals. And it's like, well, if you play talent with talent, you get points. You score goals. So it's almost as if, like, it sounds like a no-brainer, right? Like, it's just like, it sounds like it makes sense, but it seems like Winnipeg is doing everything counterintuitive. To be fair to Winnipeg, though, they also have been trying to build a back end because they got gutted in the offseason last year. So to them, the center issue was way more secondary than trying to fill the hole in the back end. So this season, I can give them the pass on. But the last 2 years, remember when they traded for Paul Stastny? That was a great fit. Paul Stastny and Patrick Laine had a great chemistry,
And they let him walk away.
They went all the way to the conference final with him. Great chemistry, absolutely lights out. And then they traded for Kevin Hayes. He didn't fit, but like that's whatever. But like,
do you think they could be in on like Tyler Johnson?
I would be. I'd be willing to take off. Like, just why not call why not call Wiesbaugh and just see what they're asking? Like, what does it hurt to be like interested? He's the perfect fit. He's exactly what you need. He's a number 2 center. I mean, yeah, he's not very big, but you don't need a big. But you know what I mean? Like if he's on the market.
I mean, he's the playmaking type center that they're looking for.
And he can notch you like 20, 25 goals if you get him in the right situation.
I think if they trade Line A, it's going to be a mistake.
If they trade Line A for a second line center iceman, that I would just, it wouldn't make any sense. I'd be so confused because the whole point of getting a second centerman is to play with Patrick Line A, isn't it?
It's just gonna. I think it's gonna leave them a bigger hole than they think.
I mean, it's like biting. It's essentially biting your nose off to spite your face. It's cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Because yes, they have guys that can definitely put the puck in the back of the net, right? Nobody's going to deny that Scheifele, Ehlers, Kyle Connor, and Blake Wheeler can put the puck in the net. But what Line A does, specifically for your power play, is he spreads that penalty kill out. Because you can't leave the threat of the one-timer open.
I mean, he's lethal. He's
If you
absolutely
trade
lethal.
Line A out, do they really have a pure, and I mean pure, goal scorer?
Look at him, right? 74 assists in the OHL. You can't tell me that's not the perfect fit for Patrick Laine right now? He's literally going to cross the blue line and look for Patrick Laine on every single play. Like, he's a pass-first kind of player.
Pick is in. Patrick Laine is entering the final year of his contract. So
Like
I think
that bridge deal, yeah.
what happens now and who they take is going to tell us a lot about the direction they're going. Because if
Right.
they don't take a playmaking center,
Then they're resigning themselves not to be keeping Patrick Laine. You know
I
he's
think
gone.
that's the case. Yeah.
But if they take Cole Perfetti, then we can pretty much guarantee that like Patrick Laine might be on the block in like air quotes, or they might be like looking to see who's interested.
But his price definitely just went up.
Right. They definitely just made the price like a blue chip prospect and like a first round pick.
So we'll listen in to the Winnipeg Jets pick here.
See what Kevin Shaveldayoff has to say.
As this coming season marks our 10th year in the history of our franchise in Winnipeg, and tonight
Wow.
I still don't have a second line center.
I would like to invite Crystal Howardchuk, wife of Dale Howardchuk,
That's nice.
the greatest number 10
Rest in peace to the legend Dale Howardchuk.
The greatest Winnipeg Jet of all time.
Thank you.
Mr. Winnipeg Jet.
I appreciate the top opinion.
Oh no.
But first, our family would like to thank the Winnipeg Jets and all of Dale's loyal fans and friends for
Do you want to stay on for the top 15?
Very tough fight of stomach
We've been
cancer.
at it for like an hour and a half,
He
right?
was a great hockey player and a very
About an hour and a
special
half,
man.
yeah.
I think
I want you
we
to
can
know
probably
that
cut
he
it after
loved
this one, I
Winnipeg
think.
and
Okay.
always felt a
I'm probably
special
just gonna
connection
watch it,
to
obviously,
Oakland,
but-
Manitoba. We both consider Winnipeg our home. Your love and support meant so much to him. Thank you. Now I am thrilled to announce with the 10th selection in the 2020 NHL Draft, the Winnipeg Jets select from Saginaw Spirit, Cole
Perfetti.
Perfetti.
This is a no-brainer, right? Like, this had to happen. So this is pretty much what we just said. This means that Patrick Laine is pretty much going to be staying in Winnipeg.
At least for this season, because it kind of wouldn't make sense to draft somebody like Cole Perfetti, who is projected to be able to play in the NHL, to not play him with like Patrick Laine. I mean, look,
It's worth the experiment, right?
at the end of the day, is this Winnipeg Jet roster like really? They're comparing Cole Perfetti to
Artemi
Mr. Artemi
Panarin.
Panarin himself.
Yikes. That'd be nasty.
I mean,
Panarin and Line,
That's the kind of puck control that a guy like Line is looking for.
of course.
Um,
Well, because Line doesn't want the puck. Let's be honest. Patrick Line, most of the time, does not want the puck until he's shooting it.
Yeah.
Because like he's not looking to carry it and set up. He just wants to look for the open spot, get the
models
puck, and
his game
score.
after Maple Leaf winger Mitch Marner. Well, Mitch Marner is probably one of the best, if not the best, playmaking players in the National Hockey League.
He's the best player on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So if he's half as good as Mitch Marner, you're getting a hell of a hockey player, you know? I mean, 71 assists. He had 71 assists. Or 74. He had 74 assists. 111
Kids
points.
Dishing the biscuit. Dishing the biscuit.
This could not be any... I guarantee you Kevin Cheveldayoff, as he saw this happening, was like, oh my God, did he really just slide all the way into our lap? I would have been so excited. I mean, he would look how much better he was after the World Juniors. 66 points. He was averaging 2.1 points per game. I mean, that's ridiculous. In 32 games, he had 44 assists. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I honestly think that here's the thing, right? I don't think the Jets are going to be competing for a Stanley Cup next year. So why would you not? And look, you put him on the second line and you tell him, like, listen, just learn how to play. You know, there's no pressure. If you struggle your first season, it's not that big a deal. We're not going to be like, again, and that's not to say the Jets aren't a good team. I think that in 2 years from now, because I don't think that they can entirely rebuild their defensive core as fast as it fell apart, right?
No, right, yeah.
So
I mean,
I think
you lose
maybe
3 guys in one offseason.
maybe 2 years from now, yeah, you compete for a Stanley Cup. But why would you not just say, look, we're going to give you a chance to play with Patrick Laine?
I mean, and if nothing else, like they'll be at least be in the conversation for a playoff spot. I still think they'll be a playoff team.
Oh, for sure.
And on top of that, I think like they'll be playing meaningful games going into, you know, I mean, it'll be good for Cole Perfetti to be playing on a team playing meaningful games well into April, you know, if not into May.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think, you know, even if he struggles, the experience for him will be really important. So, I mean,
So outside, so we're going to cut it there for the top 10 picks. Outside of Cole Perfetti going number 10, which draft pick are you either most surprised at or most excited to see? I mean, obviously outside of Lafreniere.
Well, yeah. Honestly, I'm really excited to see Tim Stützle come to Ottawa. I think him, Sanderson. I think Ottawa, like, they had a really great draft so far, and it's not even over. They have 3 second-round picks.
They still have another first-round pick.
Yeah. So I mean, Ottawa's having a great day. I'm really excited to see Alexander Holtz. I want to see what he does. I mean, playing alongside of Jack Hughes is going to be nasty. I mean, that's going to be absolutely disgusting. Jack Quinn and Jack Eichel are going to be nasty together. I mean, like, I'm excited to see all of this. Honestly, Cole Perfetti is going to be good. I mean, he's like,
I'm
such a good
most
draft.
interested to see. I mean, obviously, like I said, Alexander Holtz is the guy that I'm most excited to watch. I'm most interested to track Lucas Raymond, though, because he did go a little bit higher than most people put him, and I'm really interested to see just how good Steve Yzerman's scouting staff is, because they went off the board with Mo Seider. They went a little bit off the board with Lucas Raymond. I'm really interested to see that Lucas Raymond really, honestly, might end up being like the steal of the draft. And it's weird to say a steal at number 4, but like if Steve Yzerman sees something in him that he was like taking him at number 4 ahead of like where everyone thought he was going to go, I'm interested to track just what he ends up doing.
I think it's really interesting that I didn't realize that Jack Quinn and Marco Rossi were teammates, which I guess just makes sense. Like, Jack Quinn's a goal scorer and he's got to play making centerman. And what does Minnesota have? They have Kevin Fiala, a goal scoring winger, and what do they need? A playmaking center iceman. And what does Buffalo have? A playmaking scoring center iceman. What do they need? A goal scoring winger. It's like, wow, it could not have been any more of a match made in heaven.
So we'll wrap it up there. Any last minute thoughts on at least the top 10 picks of the first round draft?
I mean, I'm really surprised Cole Perfetti slid as far as he did, but outside of that, I don't think there was really anything.
Well, what we'll end up doing is I'm going to end up watching the rest of the first round. And then this rounds 2 through 7 are tomorrow. So maybe perhaps like Thursday, Friday. Definitely before, when does free agency starts on the 9th? So free agency starts on Friday.
So probably Thursday.
So on Thursday, we might do a draft wrap-up / free agency preview, and then the next episode after that will probably be after most of the big names come off the free agency board, because it's kind of hectic to try to be like, oh my god, this guy got signed, and like 2 seconds later, it's like, this guy's also signed.
Yeah, and also we're not going to be like live. It wouldn't be the same. Like we're not like if we had like if we didn't have day jobs or anything, like we could not like we could just sit here, but like if we could sit in front of the TV and do like a live stream of free agency, it'd be a little different, because then we could sit here and we could do it in real time. But for us to sit here and record as it's happening, it's not going to be as.
But like even then, like last year, we saw some of the bigger names didn't sign until like 4 days into free agency. So I'm like,
so we'd be sitting here on Friday just like. So nobody signed yet, guys, and. I think that's going to be specifically, like this year, I think that's going to be the case. I don't think a lot of guys are going to sign on the first day, specifically because we have a flat cap and the performance incentives are going to be on. So I found out, remember I sent you that article about playoff, like,
ask her out to the Predators.
Like the players signing bonuses and stuff counting towards the cap. That's only if it counts for more than like 8% or 10% of something. It's like some sort of percentage that it has to meet. So it'll put you on the hook for having to pay like rookies like $2.4 million instead of the league maximum $955,000, which is then going to count on your cap.
Right.
So I think like with free agency this year, I think we're going to see. I think it'll be a couple of days because the cap's going to be flat. So it's going to teams are going to have to try and figure out what they're doing because their internal cap isn't going to be as high as it actually looks like it is.
Right.
So
yeah. So what we'll do is on Thursday we'll do a draft wrap up / free agency preview. And then we'll do what we did actually last season, which is we'll wait until most of the big names are off the board. So maybe it's the week after, maybe it's 2 weeks after. At any rate, whenever most of the big names are off the board and we feel comfortable talking about that, we have a pretty good picture of where most of these guys are and where most of the teams are, then we'll do our free agency wrap-up and stuff like that. So Thursday, probably a shorter podcast just wrapping up end of the first round. And rounds 2 through 7 if there's any big trades, which there probably could be because there's a lot of teams picks flying all over the place.
And he's a southpaw. Interesting. I didn't know Askarov was a southpaw.
Yui. Not Yui, but like...
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
So I want to thank you guys for tuning in to our top 10 picks live reactions. Like I said,
season 2.
Thursday... draft wrap up, free agency preview. After that, whenever most of the names are gone, we'll do our free agency wrap up, and then it all depends on the timeline of which the NHL comes back. It'll kind of be up in the air.
They announced, I think the target date right now is January 1st, which they pushed back from December 1st.
Which I mean makes
sense.
Yeah,
because the playoffs didn't end until the beginning of September.
Right. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time.